Black Codes. In the United States, black codes were laws passed by southern states in 1865 and 1866 after the Civil War. These laws had the intent and the effect of restricting African Americans' freedom and of compelling them to work in a labor economy based on low wages or debt. In the first 2 years after the Civil War, white-dominated southern legislatures passed black codes modeled after the earlier slave codes, but they were particularly concerned with controlling movement and labor. As slavery had given way to a free labor system, although freedom had been emancipated, their lives were greatly restricted by the black codes.
Jim Crow laws. Jim Crow laws were state and local laws enforcing racial segregation in the southern United States. Jim Crow laws mandated the segregation of public schools, public places, and public transportation, and the segregation of restrooms, restaurants, and drinking fountains for whites and blacks. The U.S. military was also segregated, as were federal workplaces, initiated in 1913 under President Woodrow Wilson, the first Southern president elected since 1856. By requiring candidates to submit photos, his administration practiced racial discrimination in hiring. These Jim Crow laws followed the 1800 through 1866 Black Codes, which had previously restricted the civil rights and civil liberties of African Americans. Segregation of public schools were declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court of the United States in 1954 in Brown v. Board of Education. Generally, the remaining Jim Crow laws were overruled by the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, but the years of action and court challenges were needed to unravel numerous means of institutional discrimination.
Selma to Montgomery March. In early 1965, Martin Luther King Jr.'s Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, made Selma, Alabama the focus of its efforts to register black voters in the South. That March, protesters attempted to march from Selma to the state capital of Montgomery, where met with violent resistance by state and local authorities. As World watched, protesters, under the protection of federalized National Guard troops, finally achieved their goal. Walking around the clock for 3 days to reach Montgomery, the historic march and King's participation in it greatly helped raise awareness of the difficulty faced by black voters in the South and the need for voting rights.